thanks for coming to the CARA Volleyball rep training. Today we'll talk about some specific rules for CARA Volleyball that might be different if you're coming from USAV, high school volleyball, or even another rec program. We've got several different divisions in CARA. A and B are for our elementary school kids, 5th grade and under, and C through E are for our middle school kids, 6th grade through 8th grade. One thing to keep in mind is that we can have kids play up in a division as well as teams play up in a division. We cannot have kids or teams play in a lower division. As far as Division A goes, that's going to be for our very beginner kids. We want to make sure that they're having fun, not being afraid of the volleyball, just learning the absolute basics. Division B is for, again, our elementary school kids, but for the more advanced kids. They've played before, they're getting the idea of how to pass to a target, serving a little bit stronger. Division C is our beginners in the middle school division, or kids that are still struggling with very basic rules. Division D, again for middle school, are kids that have started to really grasp the basics and are starting to excel into some harder techniques. And Division E is what I would consider our high school prep kind of level, where they are passing, they're setting, they're hitting, they're serving overhand, and being very successul with most of their skills. Division A, there aren't a whole lot of rules other than we just don't want the kids catching and throwing the ball. They're allowed to come up to the 10-foot line to serve if they need it. Keep in mind that as they become stronger and more successful, we want to keep pushing kids back towards the end line. And it's mandatory for you to do that as a coach. If you decide not to do that as a coach, as an official, you have the right to tell the coach to move their child back. So please be proactive in doing that. In Division A, most of what you'll be doing is blowing your whistle to serve and blowing your whistle a few seconds later when the ball hits the floor. And that's okay. I just want the kids to have fun and try. Division B and C and D are very similar with their rules. B and C more so. What we're going to be focusing on with that is making sure that our kids are serving farther back in the court. For Division B, it's 20 feet from the net. So there's not going to be a line in most gyms that you go to that's going to indicate where that marker is. It's very important that you talk to the event coordinator that day to figure out where that is in their gym and what they're going to use to mark that for you. Sometimes it's a cone, sometimes it's a mark, usually on the basketball key that they're going to use for that. Sometimes they'll put down a piece of tape. So just make sure that you do know when you go into a gym that this is where my kids can start. Again, focusing on moving them back as they're successful. Division C, for their serving line, they need to be no closer than 5 feet from the end line. Again, some gyms do have a marker back there, some do not. That for Division C, for both overhand and underhand, they're allowed to use that 5-foot mark for their serving. It's not to be used as an advantage, so again, push them to the end line. I can't say that enough. Push them back. Division D is when we're getting into, we want those kids serving underhand from the end line. They're not getting the 5 feet anymore for underhand, but they do still get the 5 feet for overhand serves if they need it. And Division E, there are no footballs, so every serve, underhand or overhand, needs to be from the end line. Going back to some more specifics, as far as rules that we use in CARA, maybe not in other recreational divisions, it's going to be a 2-hit rule, and that rule is enforced for Divisions B, C, and D. Each one has a little bit of a difference from one division to the next. Basically what we're trying to do is prevent ping pong and make them learn how to play volleyball, getting 2 or 3 touches every single time the ball's on their side of the net. So it's important when you're teaching and coaching in your practices that you really try to enforce that rule, because it will be called. The signals for that is going to be this. So we're not doing like the praying thing or this, because this is a double, this is not our 2-hit rule. And we'll go over some more signals later, but that's a big one that we need to know right off the bat while I continue talking about it. So Division B with the 2-hit rule, the exceptions to that is a hard-driven ball, which can be off of a serve or an attack. That does not happen very frequently in Division B, serving more so than attacking, but anything that's considered hard-driven would be something with speed on it with a downward trajectory. They're also allowed to return the ball in one hit if they are blocking or attacking the ball at the net. Our definition of at the net for CARA is about an arm's length away. So there's not something going to be marked on the floor for you to have a visual reminder. You just have to do your best to make a judgment call on how far away they were. Obviously we have the 10-foot line, so if those kids are closer to the 10-foot line and they send the ball over in one, that's not acceptable. If they're closer to the net, we try to let them play and just have the experience. Division B and Division C, we don't require them to jump when they're attacking the ball at the net or blocking at the net. And we're also allowing a setting motion at the net for those divisions because, well, they're tiny. So you have itty-bitty kids, they're not going to be able to jump up and penetrate the top of the net and do an actual textbook block. So the setting motion is okay for them. Division D, again, the same exceptions as far as there being a hard-driven ball off of a serve or an attack, or attacking or blocking the first ball coming over the net. The addition to that is Division D kids do have to jump when they're blocking or attacking the ball. Again, the setting motion we try to discourage, but there's still going to be some tiny kids in that division. So it's important to know that if the kids are jumping and still have that motion at the net, that it's okay. Just try to really pay attention to what their actual physical abilities may be. Get into more detail with what we need to do as officials. We want to make sure, again, that we're always pushing our kids to perform to the best of their ability. Good sportsmanship, that's a really huge thing that we're trying to encourage in CARA. Making sure that your kids say good game at the end of the game, that they mean it, that they're not coming through and slapping the other team's hand really, really hard. They're not spitting in their hands and shaking hands. They're not doing any of those things. They're making fun of kids in the hallways, those sort of things. So please try to encourage good sportsmanship during your practices. And part of that good sportsmanship, again, is being assertive as a coach and knowing that if your kid's being successful with those modified serving lines, that you move them back and try to help them be successful. Don't let the whole I'm too nervous to do it or I'm not confident enough to do it be an excuse for your kids. Let them gain that experience and practice and be successful at the tournaments doing it that way. As an official, make sure that you are watching those kids, making sure that the coaches are doing their jobs. We all coach, we all officiate each other, so be honest, know what your kids' abilities are. We know, especially with the younger divisions, flukes happen, and sometimes a kid will stand at the 10-foot line and hit the back wall, and the next serve, they barely get it over. And if that happens, it happens, but if it happens consistently, you've got to move your kids. The other thing to keep in mind is, as an official, blow your whistles. Please blow your whistles. The kids depend on that in a really noisy gym to know who they're paying attention to, number one, and to know when they're supposed to start and when they're supposed to stop. So blow your whistle when you serve and blow the whistle when the ball's dead, so that they know to start and stop. Our hand signals that we use in CARA, we kind of keep it limited. Kind of for the kids, kind of for the parents. Again, it's rec, so we're doing what's necessary to understand what's happening in the game. So when we do our hand signals, again, we touched on our 2-hit rule, that this is going to be for our 2-hit rule. And before I even go any further, when you make a call, blow your whistle immediately. Don't let the play continue for forever and ever and ever, and then let it die and go, oh, well, you know, 5 minutes ago, that was a 2-hit rule violation. No. Blow your whistle, be assertive. If you're wrong, you're wrong. We're human, it happens. Okay? If you know that you blew your whistle on accident, you can do a replay, which is just a thumbs up. But just blow your whistle hard and right away. So this is, again, 2-hit rule, the most common one that everyone forgets, so I'm going to keep showing it and saying it. This is our 2-hit rule. For service, it's simply just an arm motion towards the net for whichever side is serving. If for the older divisions, for setting, we're pretty lax on what we consider a double and what's not, but if you get to the point where we're in D and E, we're expecting the setting to be a little bit better. So if you need to call a double, this is a double. If you need to call a lift or a carry, this is a lift or a carry. Really quick too, touching on the setting for the younger kids, especially in A, B, and C, we see some pretty ugly things. Let it go. The exception to that would be is if they start in one part of their body and end in another. So there's like throwing the ball overhead like a soccer ball, or doing one of these side motion type things, or doing this type of a motion. We want to call that. But otherwise, if they slap, as hard as that is as a coach to not want them to do that, if they do a slap motion but it's above their head where their hands are supposed to be, especially in A and B, just let them play. Again, D, and E, especially D and E, be a little more strict on this. Other things that we're using, very, very simple. This is out. So if the ball is clearly out, touches your antenna, touches your ceiling before it goes over, make sure you're showing an out signal. For in, we're just simply stepping and pointing at the floor of where the ball landed on either side. Another rule that's exclusive, I believe, to CARA is our 5 serve rule. And what that is going to do is help us keep the recreational environment and help things be a little more fair, especially since serving is one of those things where sometimes kids excel really quickly. And so you can have a kid that can stand back there and serve rockets all day long and really, really put a team in a disadvantage. So our 5 serve rule, how that works is as long as a team continues to win the point, they remain with the same server. That server can serve 5 times in a row. On that 5th serve, if they, again, receive the point, what you're going to do is just, once they get the ball, is let them know, hey, that was 5 serves. Good job, but the ball is now going to this team. The team that's receiving the ball, because of the 5 serve rule, does not get a point. So there's no free points for it, but now they get a chance to serve back at the other team. Other things to keep in mind when you go to different venues are what is around you, the ceiling height, basketball hoops, things like that. Usually best to talk with the coordinator at that tournament to determine what's they're going to say is in and out. Almost universal, any gym you go to, if the ball hits the ceiling on your side and you have another touch or 2 touches, you can continue to play that ball if it comes back down on your side. If you pass that ball up or serve the ball into the ceiling on the way over, then that's out. The next thing that we need to discuss is rotations. We don't have any kind of tracking, so libero tracking, anything like that. The only division that is even allowed to use a libero is going to be Division E. What we're asking for rotation-wise in Division E is you can do player-for-player substitutions and rotations. However, we ask that you be honest. Remember, this is rec and everybody needs to play. The libero needs to follow the libero rules and should be wearing a separate jersey or shirt to indicate that they're a libero. Make sure that they're not attacking in their front row and that you're not letting them serve more frequently than every 6th rotation. For every other division, rotation is mandatory. So if you are on serve receive to start off with and you get the points, you have to rotate. And we're rotating those new players into middle back. So your first server will actually be your front right position, so rotation number 2 if you're on serve receive. Again, everybody A through D has to go rotating into the middle back. Division E is the only place where we'll allow an exception for that. You do require, while you're officiating, that you have kids help with line judging and scorekeeping. So I recommend practicing that during your practices and teaching them what out and in those hand signals are. And also telling them it's okay to say that they didn't see it, because sometimes they can't see it. If you've got little ones that are learning how to do it, I recommend sticking a parent on the corner with them in Division A especially, because, oh look, there's a butterfly or a cotton ball, something is floating in the air and they're not paying attention. Usually we can see, but it's good practice to have them stand on the corner. So again, recommend the parent for A. For scorekeeping, if possible, again with the younger divisions, have a parent stand with the kids to help them keep score. Most of our venues use flip scoreboards, so it's going to be, you can do the now accepted just pointing to one side or the other for the point, or to help your kids really understand who's getting the point. It's okay in our rec division to show which side gets your point with a finger. Okay, make sure that you really watch. Whether there's a parent there or not, make sure you watch and you don't continue play until you know the score has been updated and is correct. Lastly, what we want to make sure we mention, again, CARA is a rec sport. We want to make sure that we're getting kids equal playing time. It's a big reason why we rotate out of the middle back. Encouraging good sportsmanship with all of your kids. I can't say that enough. Make sure as a ref that if you have questions, go to your coordinator now with this video and they can help you answer those questions, or at the coaches meeting. Every single tournament that you go to, there will be a coaches meeting at the beginning of the day. If you have questions or concerns, make sure you bring them up in that meeting. Sometimes, again, encouraging these kids to be successful, that means you need help understanding a certain rule, or you've got a kid that maybe is so close to being successful at serving, but they need one more step in front of that 5-foot line or at the 10-foot line to be successful at serving. A lot of our coaches, we've been doing this a while, we understand that, and our goal is to have kids be successful. So any concerns you have, make sure that you bring those up in the coaches meeting at the tournaments.